What is up, guys? It's your boy Mo, and today we're back in another video. This video is called 15 Strange Things. I fucked it up. 15 Strangest Things Ever Discovered in Egypt. Now, this video caught my attention after the last one we did yesterday, because it was up there. It was on a little discovery thing, so I was like, fuck it. We finna react to that tomorrow. That was in my plans, you know what I'm saying? So today, we're gonna react to this shit. Let's get into it, man. Let's go. First of all, let me actually do something real quick. Cause I need this. Alright, okay.
Ancient Egypt has captivated our collective attention for centuries. The once great civilization was full of amazing culture, art, traditions, and innovations that we likely will never see again. There's no shortage of artifacts for archaeologists to dig up, and sometimes unexpected things are discovered that leave people scratching their heads. So in today's video, join me as we take a look at the top 15 strangest things discovered in Egypt. Number 15. Cleopatra's Alexandria. Scientists and archaeologists believe that Cleopatra's once vast Egyptian empire sank into the sea because of an earthquake and subsequent tsunami. It had been lost for over 1,600 years until it was finally discovered in 1998 by French archaeologist Franck Goddio, and has become one of the most popular excavation sites in the world, and it's easy to see why. While the entire city was submerged, the artifacts and architecture have remained largely intact. Plenty of discoveries have been made since its find, like the palace foundation, the red granite columns, shipwrecks, statues of the goddess Isis, and sphinxes. The site's also open to divers and sits just 5 to 8 meters below the surface. And although there is still much to be discovered, visibility in the area is quite bad. So unless you're going there with the best undersea technology, chances are that you'll come up empty-handed. But it's just amazing to think what was once a great empire in a dry and arid location is now completely submerged underwater. If there was ever proof that something like the lost city of Atlantis can exist, then the sunken city of Cleopatra's Alexandria is it. Number 14. The Khufu Ship. Burial was pretty common amongst the royalty in ancient Egypt, and it was even more common for them to be buried with their personal belongings, even their boats. But in 2016, Czech archaeologists going for a normal dig in the sand uncovered something that left them all quite surprised. They dug up an ancient 62-foot-long funerary boat in a tomb made of mud and bricks. Carbon dating and a little bit of research dated the boat back more than 4,500 years. Much to their surprise again, the boat was well preserved, and the thousands-of-year-old wood was still intact. But what really had them asking questions was, since it wasn't buried anywhere near a royal burial ground, what was it doing all the way out here? Was it buried with a commoner, and if so...
That's the sound of
Bro,
We're hard at work.
I won't stop sneaking up my damn videos, nigga.
Hello.
Fuck out my face.
What kind of commoner has a boat like this? How did they afford it? And with no water around, how did they bring it inland? The finding is so shrouded in mystery that the only people who will ever likely know the truth are the ones who put it there 4,500 years ago. Number 13. The Lost City of Heraklion. The ancient city of Heraklion was mentioned here and there in the Egyptian texts and inscriptions, but its existence has never been confirmed. An archaeologist by the name of Franck Goddio spent years searching for the alleged city off the coast of Egypt, but had continuously come up short. But in the year 2000, advancements in undersea screening technology revealed the lost city of Heraklion submerged 6.5 kilometers off the coast. Divers searched the area and found lots of gold coins from the era and the ruins of 64 ships. The most interesting archaeological find, though, is 16-foot statues of Egyptian gods like Hapi, the god of fertility and the lord of the river. It may be a fitting end, then, that the statue ended up underwater. But then how did the ancient city meet its fate? In typical fashion, scientists say it's likely that an earthquake or the subsequent tremors brought the city of Heraklion to its knees. Number 12. Croc mummies. Cats were held in incredibly high regard during ancient times. Royalty kept their feline companions and protectors close to them both in life and in death. and so burying a cat with their owner was a very common practice. But cats weren't the only animals that were placed next to their coffins. Archaeologists have found some really weird four-legged friends down there over the years. The kings and queens of the time kept all sorts of pets, like rams, gazelles, shrews, ibises, full-on bulls, and even scarab beetles clutching their little dung balls. They've all been mummified to withstand the test of time. Yeah, to us it's certainly strange, but if it made sense back then, who are we to judge? But there is one animal that made for one strange discovery: Nile crocodiles. How the ancient Egyptians were able to catch these river reptiles is anyone's guess, and the matter of taming the beasts is up for debate too. But the crocs were buried not only with their masters, but with their babies as well, because the family that's buried together stays together. So the next time you're yelling at your dog to pipe down, just remember to imagine what it would have been like to try and calm down your pet crocodile. Number 11. Ancient security systems.
Yo, and I just want to know if that's actually true. Back in the Egyptian times, I heard like when they heard that it was gonna be a prophet in Egypt or whatever, it was gonna be born in Egypt, cause I guess God sent them a sign or something like that, or I don't know what was up with the king that was over there, but basically they sat there, they went and they snatched every like baby boy that was out of the kingdom that was like born at the time, or they was babies and shit. Like they took that and they I guess they start feeding the babies to the crocodiles and shit. And that's basically why Moses' mom had to send them off or whatever.
When it came to ancient Egypt,
and they had to run too, bro.
Robbers ran rampant for a time.
And that's exactly why that king, bro, he getting punished in the afterlife, bro. You don't do no shit like that.
Buried along with all of their worldly possessions to keep them glamorous in the afterlife. So naturally, the living wanted a piece of the pie. But it wasn't as simple as just busting into the place and robbing it blindly, because the people who built these tombs often incorporated security measures. People have found tombs with special rooms that led to nowhere, just like the Winchester Mansion, and false walls to keep thieves guessing. Then there are the false floors that break as soon as the would-be thief steps on them, dropping them down into either the dark abyss below, pikes, or spears. How ironic that these final resting places were full of death traps. Even the pharaoh Tutankhamun's tomb was found underneath another tomb. Everyone was looking for eternal rest, and you're not going to get it if someone comes knocking on the door of your mausoleum. But one of the craziest security measures was found in none other than the Great Pyramid, where the pharaoh took the utmost precautions. His council constructed a series of granite blocks and grooves along the walls that could slide into place to block the entrance to his chamber. This sounds like something out of a movie, but the real question is, did this 1,000-year-old safe work? Unfortunately, not quite. When researchers delved deep into the Great Pyramid, they found that most of the place had been looted, only finding an empty sarcophagus. But conspiracy theorists love ancient Egypt, which is why many of them postulate that this empty sarcophagus is simply a decoy, with the true remains hiding even deeper within the pyramid.
Hello.
Yo, bro.
Do you want to play with me?
Sure. You want me to help you with
Can
your
y'all not
groceries?
do this while I'm making a reaction
Number
video?
10. Graves
hell?
of clay. Finding some preserved human remains at a dig in Egypt is an everyday occurrence. We all know about the cultural burial rites, and chances are that no one bats an eyelash anymore. But what about finding dozens at a time, and not in the typical sarcophagi either? At the start of 2020, researchers found a staggering grave of about 83 bodies, all of which were buried in rudimentary coffins, which is quite uncharacteristic of the old culture. Most of these graves have been dated back to the Naqada III period, also known as the Lower Egypt period, which occurred during the last half of 4 to 3000 BCE, which is super old even for ancient Egyptian standards, predating the pharaohs. These small graves of clay really had people scratching their heads, because that sort of clay wasn't the typical material used for such things at the time. So why did they use clay? And even more, why were these graves so shallow? No one will know for sure, but there's a chance that because they were working with such rudimentary tools, digging a full 6 feet deep wasn't an option. But like the Egyptians who came after them, many of these bodies were laid to rest with what few goods they had as well. So despite predating the pharaohs, it's likely that aspects of their burial rites were passed down for generations to come. But the real question here is, was this ancient burial ground a graveyard, or were people living amongst the 83-person grave? Number 9. Oxyrhynchus papyri. There are very few things cooler than ancient texts. Not only do they provide some serious insight into what life was like long ago, but it reveals to us new writing systems and old schools of thought that can still resonate today. Some can't be deciphered altogether, but thankfully that isn't the case with this next entry on our list. The Oxyrhynchus papyri was discovered by archaeologists Bernard Grenfell and Arthur Hunt sometime during their 11-year excavation at the turn of the 20th century. They found a total of 500,000 fragments of the Oxyrhynchus papyri that date back nearly 2,000 years, which is pretty amazing, and it was actually thanks to the arid weather of the area that kept it intact for so long. But it kind of makes you wonder how long the books on your shelf will live. But the Oxyrhynchus papyri is named after the ancient town it was found in, the ruins of Oxyrhynchus, which was a decently sized town that existed when Rome had control over Egypt. But the papyri was full of all sorts of things, some more exciting than others. On the boring side, there were Christian gospels written in there, but on the more exciting end of things, there were plenty of magic spells to be found, including a love spell, and even a contract to fix a local wrestling match. And whether the spells work or the match went through as planned is anybody's guess. Nowadays, Oxyrhynchus papyri is owned by the United Kingdom's Egypt Exploration Society, which is the institution that originally sponsored the initial expedition, and you can catch a glimpse of much of the text at the University of Oxford. And despite having the papyri for over 100 years, scholars and linguists are still translating it. But the real question is, how many more of these papyri are still waiting to be found? Number 8. Tomb KV5. One of the most prominent tombs from ancient Egypt is simply known to researchers as KV5. It's easy to remember and isn't as much as a mouthful as something like, say, the tomb of Tutankhamun. But despite the simple name, archaeologists got a lot more than they bargained for during a 1995 excavation. At the time, the tomb hadn't been studied much, with most people thinking that it was not only small, but also not holding much. But it turns out they were very wrong, and found out that Tomb KV5 is the largest of its kind to be constructed in Egypt's Valley of the Kings. So far, they've found over 120 corridors and chambers inside of the tomb, and they expect to find at least another 150 more. It's a pretty amazing find that no one expected, and just so happens to be the final resting place of all of Pharaoh Ramesses II's sons during his reign from 1279 to 1213. And he had a lot of sons, at least 6, and to show how much he loved them even after he died, there are well over 20 representations of them carved directly into the walls of the tomb. Much like an iceberg, Tomb KV5 hid plenty of secrets beneath the surface upon further investigation, and who even knows what else lies in wait down there. Number 7. Pet Cemetery. Nobody likes to lose a pet. They're part of the family, and for many people, they're the same as having a human child. But did you know that the ancient Egyptians felt the same way? And one particular ancient Egyptian discovery proved just how much the people loved their furry little friends. The town of Hierakonpolis sits along the Nile River, and 5,000 years ago, well before the construction of the pyramids, it was one of the largest and most important towns.
I think we're going to go with
Go
you.
ahead, bro.
That's great.
Fuck.
Awesome. Let me get the contract.
One last thing. You're sucked.
The residents like to show off their wealth by keeping pets, and I don't just mean dogs or those divine cats. During an excavation, archaeologists found just what the rich and famous of Hierakonpolis liked to keep in their menagerie, and it absolutely blew their minds. We're talking about elephants and baboons, just to name a few. The types of animals you'd have to pay money to see in a zoo. But the skeletons revealed that it wasn't always fun and games, and a petting zoo Hierakonpolis was not, because researchers saw that many of the exotic animal skeletons suffered from broken bones and blunt force trauma that was likely caused during capture or being tied up. So while this pet cemetery of Hierakonpolis is incredibly interesting, it's also pretty sad. Number 6. Graffiti. What do all major metropolitan areas have in common? Sure, there's the big city hustle and bustle, but they're also full of graffiti. Some of them may be actual works of art, like a Banksy piece. Some may be gang signs and tags. Others may be just kids messing around. But not even ancient Egypt was safe from kids having fun at the expense of buildings. The ancient Egyptians definitely left their mark on the world in more ways than one, and because while workers and slaves may have toiled away for years, day in and day out, to build things like the pyramids and sphinxes, they made sure that they got the last word. Because it took so many people to build these things, they were split up into groups to help keep track of them, and each group was given some sort of name, so while they were supposed to be working, many of them left their personal signatures right into the bricks, making for some interesting ancient graffiti. Researchers have found 2 tags so far, one written with red paint on the walls of the relieving chamber above the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid of Giza that read, "The Friends of Khufu Gang."
Khufu?
Number 5.
Nigga said Khufu Gang. That shit crazy. Those probably the BDs in Egypt, bro. I got chill. That shit was crazy. Wow. Nigga said Khufu Gang.
I've already mentioned the Tomb of Tutankhamun on today's list, so now it's time to finally sit down and talk about this awesome Egyptian discovery. This final resting place houses the pharaoh Tutankhamun, who ruled between 1334 and 1325 BCE during the 8th dynasty of Egypt in the Valley of the Kings. And while this tomb is one of the smallest of its kind within the valley, that doesn't make it any less extravagant. There are 4 chambers, all of which are adorned with plenty of decorations and hieroglyphics. And aside from being buried with a coffin, his council also added his old furniture, clothing, and jewelry, all of which were densely packed to fit into the space. And although the place has been robbed at least twice, much of the burial goods and Tutankhamun's mummy are all still intact. But what makes this place so strange? Well, the tomb was discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter, who would go on to speculate that the tomb of Tutankhamun was cursed. Shortly after the discovery, the tomb of Tutankhamun garnered a great deal of media attention. But Carter's patron and sponsor, the Earl of Carnarvon, died. So is the tomb of Tutankhamun totally cursed? Probably not, but the idea of ancient Egyptians putting magic spells on their possessions makes for some pretty fun theories. Number 4, the Royal Cache. The Royal Cache. Despite the name, the Royal Cache is a morbid discovery from ancient Egypt because it contains a collection of mummified remains and the funeral equipment and goods of 50 people, all of whom were kings, queens, and lesser royalty. Essentially, this was a place located in the Theban necropolis to store the dead and their belongings during the 21st dynasty. The discovery goes back to the year 1871. I just imagine the look on everyone's faces when they found this many preserved remains. The Royal Cache became quite the sensation and was the top attraction of the new Egyptian Museum at Giza at the time. As of today, researchers have been able to identify almost all of the mummies found within the Royal Cache, with some of its residents including both Ramesses I and Ramesses II. And frankly, if this were found anywhere other than ancient Egypt, chances are it would be considered a mass grave and not a royal cache. Number 3, the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid of Giza is one of the greatest discoveries of all time, and not just for Egypt, but for anywhere. But what makes it so strange? Well, a lot of things actually. The types of things that don't show up on the surface and create all sorts of conspiracy theories. You have to remember, when it comes to technology, the ancient Egyptians weren't working with much, so it's still a bit of a mystery as to how they were able to build the pyramids in the first place. But aside from physically building it, the Great Pyramid seems to be in tune with the Earth itself, because it's placed perfectly along the east and west parallels and Earth's meridians. Again, no one really knows how this was calculated, and no modern buildings have been able to replicate it. Even the radius was calculated with the radius of the sun in mind. It's strange, because there's a solid chance that we'll never know just how the ancient Egyptians did all of this, especially with the resources they had. But one thing we do know for sure is that there's a lot more than meets the eye, and this civilization could have been working with a lot more than we give them credit for.
Bro, get your ass up.
Number 2, Karnak. The country has all sorts of ruins and is even home to one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. But for now, we're talking about the Karnak Temple Complex in Luxor, Egypt. The first thing you'll notice about Karnak is the sheer size of the site. It's absolutely huge, with so many massive sculptures carved right into the walls, like the Avenue of the Sphinxes. One can only wonder what it was like to walk that stretch in ancient times. Karnak is one of the largest ancient cities on Earth, and it's here you'll find plenty of temples, sanctuaries, obelisks, and shrines devoted to the gods of old. But what's really wild is that Karnak took a full 2,000 years to build, making it another classic example of a project that most of the people who worked on it could never see the finished product. And all of the pharaohs who ruled during the construction left their own personal architectural mark on the sprawling city. With sites like the Great Hypostyle Hall and the towering pylons and solid sandstone columns, Karnak is easily one of the most photographed places in ancient Egypt. Make sure you visit the stone scarab, because if you walk around the statue 7 times, it's said to bring you good luck in your love life. Number 1. The Valley of Golden Mummies. Egypt's Bahariya Oasis is one of the largest burial sites ever found, known as the Valley of the Golden Mummies. Discovered in 1996, this one puts the royal cache to shame, because when it was first discovered, 250 mummies were found. But that number only grew upon further excavation, and it grew by a lot. There are likely about 10,000 mummies within the valley, most of which are still very well preserved. It's absolutely amazing, and seeing as how 30,000 people once inhabited the Bahariya Oasis, that means about 1/3 of the population can be found here. Researchers found 4 different styles of mummification at the Valley of Golden Mummies. 60 of them were buried with gilded masks adorning their faces, and a gilded waistcoat depicting various Egyptian gods and goddesses. The second style saw mummies covered in a cartonnage with scenes of the god Anubis, who is believed to have overseen all of Egypt's mummifications, along with his 4 children. The third style was less gaudy, with no decorations whatsoever, and these bodies were placed in a pottery coffin. Finally, the fourth style involved only being covered in linen, likely implying their lower class status during their life. Watch our binge watching playlist if you'd like to watch all.
Well, anyways, guys, that's the end of the video. Kind of enjoyed this one a little bit. It's not really what I expected to be watching. You know what I'm saying? With how much content was in here and all that. But, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to catch y'all with another one later. We're going to look at more Discovery joints. I'm going to find more for y'all. We out. We bipping.